What's going on, guys? Comics Kid 2099 here. Welcome to day 328 of the 365-day graphic novel review challenge. Today I want to talk to you about Nightcrawler, Volume 1, Homecoming. This is written by Chris Claremont with art by Todd Knock. This is the first 6 issues of the Nightcrawler ongoing series. This was a spin-off of the first arc of Amazing X-Men. In that arc, we saw Nightcrawler come back from the dead after he had died in the Second Coming crossover that came a few years before that arc. And basically, the idea here is that a lot of stuff has changed in the time that Nightcrawler was dead. He is having to get used to the New World Order and try to find his place in this new world. That's kind of the ongoing subplot throughout this entire series, and while Nightcrawler is trying to figure that out, there are 2 stories that happen in this 6-issue run. We have the first 4 issues where this robot called Trimega is trying to kidnap and or kill Nightcrawler's girlfriend, Amanda Sefton, and then that kind of goes in a direction that I didn't really see coming. And then the last 2 issues of this book are Nightcrawler and a student at the Jean Grey School trying to recruit a new mutant to the Jean Grey School. And I like this quite a bit, a lot more than what I thought. And that may sound like a little bit of a backhanded compliment. With Chris Claremont, you really never know what you're going to get with him, especially in anything that he wrote after 1991. I am a huge fan of Chris Claremont. He is my favorite writer, especially in the X-Men. I like almost everything that he did from 1975 to 1991. Considering that is 16 years of comics, there are comparatively very few stinkers in that run. There's some stuff there that I didn't like, but a lot of it I think can be attributed to editorial mandate and other people trying to horn in on Claremont's vision. I think by and large that is a very solid chunk of issues from that time period. But then after 1991, when he left the X-Men, he came back a few different times, and a lot of those chunks of runs that he did, starting in the late 90s on up until today, I don't feel like have been nearly as good as the stuff that he did the first time around. There has been some really bad stuff. I really did not like Extreme X-Men. I did not like X-Men The End. I thought that was just one of the worst stories that I've ever read. He's done some stuff that I thought was okay. There was an Uncanny X-Men run right before Rise and Fall of the Shi'ar Empire that I thought was pretty good. But then he's done some stuff that was just kind of forgettable, like the Extreme X-Men run. I really didn't like that, like I said. So with this, I was not sure what to expect. I actually had a friend who read the first issue, and he really did not like that first issue. So I wasn't expecting anything very good with this, but I ended up liking it a lot more than I thought it would. I really like that Nightcrawler is trying to get used to just how weird and messed up everything is in the X-Men world. And I kind of feel like maybe that is Chris Claremont using Nightcrawler as his own voice in the world of the X-Men. Maybe Claremont is saying, you know what, it is really weird that the X-Men have split off into 2 different groups, and Kitty Pryde is with Cyclops. It is a little weird that Wolverine has lost his healing factor. There's all this stuff that maybe Claremont thinks is really weird, and so he's using Nightcrawler as a way to voice how weird that is. And that might be a little bit intrusive in any other comic. I think it works very well here, especially since Nightcrawler has been out of the scene for a little while. The first storyline here is not as good as the second storyline, and that's unfortunate because it takes up the bulk of this book. I don't understand why the bad guy is doing what they are doing. It's going to be very hard for me to talk about this without spoiling it, so I am going to spoil the first 4 issues of this book. The bad guy of this piece is Margalie Zardos, who is Nightcrawler's stepmother. She raised Nightcrawler and Amanda Sefton, and apparently she's a bad guy. I don't really understand why she's doing what she's doing when Nightcrawler brings her and Amanda to the school to try and protect them from the Trimega robot. Storm is saying, Margalie Zardos is not welcome here. She's done some really bad stuff. And Nightcrawler is saying, well, I know that, but we don't know that, or at least I don't know that. I've read a whole lot of X-Men comics, and I have no idea what Margalie Zardos did to make the X-Men so angry at her. The last time I read anything with her in it, I'm pretty sure it was the 1980s. It wasn't the 1980s when I read it, but it was a comic from the 1980s. So I have no idea why Margalie Zardos has given the X-Men cause to hate her, but apparently she's a bad guy now because she is the one who was sending the Trimega robots after Amanda Sefton. Apparently this was all one big scheme to get Nightcrawler to bring her to X-Men headquarters so that she could pluck memories out of Beast and Storm's mind about how Nightcrawler escaped from heaven so that she could get to heaven somehow. It's really weird. It's not explained at all. It's explained that she wants to do it. It's not explained why she wants to do it, especially since this is a character who at one time Nightcrawler felt very fondly for, and he liked her quite a bit, and she seemed to be a good guy at one time. So I don't really understand why she's doing what she's doing, and that's not explained here, which is unfortunate. But I really did like all the subplot stuff here about Nightcrawler trying to find his new place in the world. After Margulis Zardos is defeated, he is trying to say, you know what, I'm not going to let this get me down. I survived this experience. I need to be thankful for that. I really like that we get to see his religious aspect played up here. That's something that a lot of times is ignored depending on the writer. Sometimes the writer will very heavily emphasize the fact that Nightcrawler is Catholic, and then sometimes they will ignore it for a few dozen issues at a time. And I really like that his religion here is at the forefront. It's not slapping you in the face with it, but it's there enough to remind you that, yes, this is a character who, when something bad like this would happen, this is the way that he would react, and I like that quite a bit. After that, then he says, okay, I'm going to keep living my life. I'm not going to let this get me down. And so he decides he's going to be a teacher. It's a little weird because at the beginning of that issue, he's saying that these particular students, they're not training to be X-Men. They are just students who happen to have superpowers. And so then he goes to Beast and says, okay, what class can I teach? And he ends up teaching the Danger Room, which is something that you would teach students who want to be X-Men. That's a little bit weird that he starts off the day saying, like, I'm going to teach them to be normal students, and then by the end of the day, he's teaching them how to fight. But anyway, I guess he doesn't have much on his resume that would allow him to teach, like, algebra or something like that. So that makes sense. And then we get to see one of these students that was introduced in this series. His name is Rico. I don't remember what his code name is, if he even has one. He kind of looks like a scorpion, and he goes with Nightcrawler on this adventure to rescue this girl who is being, or attempted to be kidnapped by pirates who work for Tullamore Vogue. And if you've read any Chris Claremont X-Men comics going back to like the late 90s, Tullamore Vogue is an on-again, off-again bad guy that the X-Men seem to only fight when Chris Claremont is writing an X-Men comic. He showed up in Extreme X-Men. He showed up in the late 90s in his Uncanny run, right before Chuck Austin and Joe Casey, right before that run. It feels like Tullamore Vogue is a character that only Chris Claremont cares about, and that's probably because there's nothing really interesting about this guy. He's basically a space slaver. That's all there is to him. There's nothing else there. He's not a very interesting character, but for some reason Chris Claremont really digs this character and always finds a way to use him whenever he's writing an X-Men comic. Having said that, I really like Nightcrawler being a mentor figure to this kid, that he sees a lot of himself in this kid because he also has a very physical mutation, and he's telling this kid, listen, it's going to be hard, but you can make your life a little bit better. And he's basically just regurgitating the pep talk that Rachel gave him not that long ago. So I thought that was kind of funny. But I like this portion of the book a little bit more than the Margulis Zardos sending robots to kill her daughter portion. I wish that that had been explained a little bit more, why Margulis is doing what she's doing. Other than that, I like this book quite a bit, and I am very much looking forward to reading the next volume. I don't think that this series lasted very long, but that's okay because I really like this, and even if a series can only last about a year, if it's this good, then I'm okay with that. I wish it could last a little longer, but if it only lasts this long, then I guess I can just make do with what I'm given. So anyway, those are my thoughts on Nightcrawler Homecoming. I hope that you guys liked this video, and if you did, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will be back tomorrow with a different video. In the meantime, you guys have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.